4 markets on Florida's Gulf Coast: Tampa, Sarasota, Naples, Fort Myers. If I asked you to rank them from lowest purchase price to highest, I think a lot of people would put Tampa at the bottom. And it isn't. Fort Myers has the lowest entry point of the 4 because the market with the lowest purchase price is not necessarily the most affordable market to own in. This is the math I see buyers overlook all the time. They start with, how much house can I buy? When the better question is, what is this house actually going to cost me every month once I own it? So let's compare all 4 properly. What kind of lifestyle are you actually buying and what you may be trading away to get it? Let's start with what everybody sees first: price. And I want to separate Fort Myers and Cape Coral here because they get lumped together constantly. They are not the exact same market. And Tampa Bay is a little harder to reduce to one number because when people say Tampa, they can mean Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, Pasco County, or the actual city of Tampa. Those market prices are different. A home in Wesley Chapel is not the same as a home in South Tampa as far as price is concerned. So broadly speaking, Tampa Bay lands above those lower Southwest Florida entry points, but there is a lot of variation depending on exactly where you're looking. Then Sarasota County is around the upper 400s, and Naples single families are approaching 800,000. So yes, the purchase price differential is real. And if your only goal is to buy the most house for the lowest purchase price, Fort Myers and parts of Cape Coral become very compelling. But most comparison videos stop right there. Lowest price wins, and then they roll the credits. And that's exactly how buyers end up in a house they can afford to buy without fully understanding what it costs to own. Because your housing payment isn't just principal and interest, it's your mortgage, property taxes, homeowner's insurance, and depending on the property, flood insurance, possibly HOA or CDD fees. And in Florida, those additional costs deserve just as much attention as the purchase price and sometimes even more. Quick thing, before we get into the negotiating room, look below this video. There's a subscribe button. If it already says subscribe, thank you. That genuinely helps this channel more than you'd think. And if it doesn't, tap it. I do these Tampa Bay and Florida real estate breakdowns every Thursday so you can make decisions using actual numbers instead of headlines. All right, now let's talk about where buyers actually have leverage. Here's a number I want you paying attention to almost as much as price: months of supply. Months of supply tells us roughly how long it would take to sell a home currently listed if no new inventory came on the market and a buyer continued buying at the current pace. Generally speaking, lower inventory gives sellers more leverage. Higher inventory gives buyers more leverage. But I don't want you getting overly attached to some universal rule that says 3 months means this and 6 months means that. Real estate is more local than that. Tampa Bay and Tampa single family inventory is roughly in the 3 to 4 month range depending on the county and area. That means there's absolutely more opportunity for buyers than there was during the frenzy a few years ago. You have choice again, and you have negotiating room again. But this is not a market where I would automatically assume you're walking in and taking 10% off every listing, especially when the house is priced correctly. When I'm working with a buyer here, I'm looking at 3 things before we decide: how aggressive to be, how long has a property been sitting, have they already been priced, and have they had price reductions, and what have the closest comparable homes actually sold for? Because a house that hit the market 4 days ago and is priced correctly is a completely different negotiating form than the one that's been sitting 75 days with 2 price reductions. Now let's go to Sarasota. Sarasota's single family supply is currently around 3.9 months. Homes are taking a median of roughly 52 days to go under contract, and sellers are receiving around 94% of their original asking price. That less number matters because it tells us there's negotiating happening. But Sarasota's inventory has also tightened. So I would not describe Sarasota today as some massive buyer's market where sellers are simply giving homes away. There's opportunity, but you still need a strategy. Naples. Naples single family is closer to roughly 5 months of supply, with homes taking around 70 days to sell. And Naples is obviously starting from a much higher purchase price. That creates an interesting dynamic because even a 5% negotiating on a higher priced Naples property can represent a meaningful amount of money. Fort Myers and Lee County. Fort Myers and the broader Lee County market are running around 55 days on market, but Southwest Florida can become extremely neighborhood and property specific. A $350,000 inland property and a $1 million waterfront home may technically sit in the same market report, but they are not operating in the same market. And a Cape Coral adds another layer because canal access, Gulf access, and locations within the city can dramatically affect demand. Where do you have leverage at the price point and in the neighborhood you actually are shopping in? Now, we get to the part that can completely change the answer: carrying costs. And let's start with property taxes because Florida's buyers get tripped up here all the time. Here's something I want you to remember. Do not look at what the current homeowner pays in property taxes and assume that will be your next tax bill. That number may be based on an assessed value that has been protected for years. And once the property sells, the assessed value can change. Municipalities matters too. Buying inside the city of Tampa can produce a different tax structure than buying elsewhere in Hillsborough County. The same principle applies across these markets. So when I'm helping a buyer compare two houses, I do not simply repeat the seller's current tax bill. I want to estimate what your taxes may look like based on your purchase. That gives us a much more realistic picture. But property taxes aren't even the biggest variable in Florida. Insurance can be. Two houses at the same purchase price can carry very different insurance costs, even two houses on the same neighborhood. Why? Let's look at it. Maybe perhaps the roof age, roof type, wind mitigation, age of the home, electrical system, plumbing, elevation, flood zone, replacement costs, claim history. These are a lot of variables, and if you're buying near the coast, flood deserves its own conversation. This is also why I don't love using one big county insurance average and pretending that tells you what your house will cost. A county average is not a quote, because this is where the market with the lower purchase price can suddenly stop being the most affordable option. If this is the kind of real estate breakdown you want more of, tap subscribe. Take a second, and my goal with these videos is simple: give you enough information to ask better questions before you make a very expensive decision. Now, we need to talk specifically about Fort Myers and Cape Coral because there's an important flood insurance story here. Fort Myers and Cape Coral have some of the lowest purchase price entry points on this list. If they're on your radar, this next part may be one of the most important pieces of this video. And there's actually some encouraging news here that I don't think enough buyers know. Here's what happened. After Hurricane Ian, which hit Southwest Florida September of 2022, there's a FEMA program called the Community Rating System. Communities that go above the minimum on floodplain management earn their residents a discount on the National Flood Insurance Program premiums. In Lee County, that discount has been 25%. In March of 2024, FEMA proposed taking that rating away, citing unpermitted and undocumented repair work after Ian. That was real, and it was a serious threat to a lot of the household budgets. Then it got worked out. FEMA paused the decision in April, and Cape Coral was notified in July that its classification would not be downgraded. Again, in November of 2024, Unincorporated Lee County submitted a corrective action plan that FEMA said exceeded expectations and kept its Class 5 rating and the 25% discount. Fort Myers Beach had a harder road. It went into the NFIP probation, which added a surcharge to every flood policy in town. It came off probation in November 2025, earned a Class 5 rating in December, and as of April 1st of this year, most Fort Myers Beach policyholders are eligible for that 25% discount again. So if you saw headlines in 2024 about Southwest Florida potentially losing these flood insurance discounts and quietly cross Fort Myers or Cape Coral off of your list, the story did not end there. But here's what that does not mean. It does not mean flood insurance is inexpensive, and it definitely does not mean every property carries the same flood risk. A community discount affects the premium. It does not change the property's flood zone, its elevation, its construction, or its actual exposure. It isn't just a fun fact somebody put on a tourism brochure. It shapes the entire city, and it also shapes the insurance conversation. A canal property with direct Gulf access can have a very different risk and insurance profile from a home several streets inland. Same city, completely different property. Homes that experience substantial damage may have to be brought into compliance with current floodplain requirements, and that can include elevation requirements. So before you fall in love with a property in Southwest Florida, I want 3 things first: the flood zone determination, second, the available elevation information or elevation certificate for the property, and third, an actual flood insurance quote with the address on it. Those 3 things, because after you run the numbers, the market with one of the lowest purchase price entry points on this list may genuinely be your best option. Fort Myers just has some of the most recent history attached to it. All right, let me actually answer the question now, but I'm gonna answer it based on what you're optimizing for. Lowest purchase price, entry point, Fort Myers and the broader Lee County market, then Cape Coral. If your goal is simply maximizing house for purchase price, those markets deserve a serious look. But remember, everything we just discussed, purchase price is only the beginning of affordability. Negotiating opportunity, Naples gives buyers meaningful leverage right now, and because the price point is higher, even a modest percentage negotiation can represent significant dollars. Sarasota sellers are negotiating too. Although single family inventory there has tightened, so I would not automatically assume every seller is desperate. In Tampa Bay, we're tighter overall. You can absolutely negotiate. I do it all the time, but the negotiating needs to be supported by the property. Days on market, condition, price reductions, comparable sales, seller motivation, those matter. Lowering carrying costs, this one is where I refuse to declare a winner based on the county average because the house matters too much. I would rather compare 2 actual properties and run estimated taxes, homeowners insurance, flood if applicable, HOA, CDD, and financing. Then tell you which one actually costs less every month. This is the number that matters. Walkable downtown lifestyle. Sarasota and downtown Tampa both give you legitimate options. Very different housing stock, different scale, different price points, different lifestyle. And Naples gives you another version of that amenity-rich lifestyle at a considerably higher purchase price entry point. Water access with a boat. Cape Coral, clearly. More than 400 miles of waterways are part of the layout and lifestyle of the city. But remember, the same water driving that lifestyle is part of why understanding flood exposure matters. Predictability. This is where Tampa Bay gets an advantage for me, with a caveat. It's the market I work every day. I understand the neighborhoods, the builders, the insurance conversations, the areas where inventory is growing, the areas where buyers have leverage, and the places where a house can still sell quickly if it's positioned correctly. But even here, I'm not gonna promise you what prices do next. Nobody responsibly can. There isn't one winner. There is a match between what you're optimizing for and what each market actually offers. And that's the conversation I would rather have with you, not which city is the best. My question is, best for what? Because your answer may be completely different from somebody else's. Now, time for some Q&A. These are some of the recent questions that we've been asked. And let's start with the first one. Which of these four will appreciate the most? And there's really no credible way to tell you that with certainty. Anyone giving you a definitive answer is just forecasting, not reporting. What I can tell you is this: what's measured today. Current prices, current supply, current days on market, current negotiating conditions, current carrying costs, and where demand exists today. So make your decision using numbers we can verify, not somebody's prediction about what may have happened 5 years from now. Second question. Is Naples worth roughly double Fort Myers? Maybe the answer is absolutely yes. Maybe it's absolutely not. If what you want is in the Naples lifestyle and you have the budget for it, comparing it strictly dollar for dollar against Fort Myers misses the point. If your goal is maximizing a house for every dollar spent, then the answer may be completely different. Same two markets, two answers, because two buyers can be optimizing for completely different things. Next question. Should I rent for a year first? In Southwest Florida specifically, I actually understand that instinct. And for some buyers, it can be a smart strategy. Not because I'm predicting whether prices go up or down, I'm not, but living there for a year gives you time to understand the neighborhoods, traffic patterns, seasonality, insurance, flood considerations, commute, and what the lifestyle actually feels like day to day. You may write a much smarter offer afterward, but renting has a cost too. You're delaying a purchase. You may have to move twice, and your financial situation matters. So I'm not gonna automatically say and tell you first to rent. I'm not gonna automatically tell you buy immediately either. Rerun both scenarios, then make the decision that actually fits you. Here's a summary. Fort Myers and Cape Coral offer some of the lowest purchase price entry points of these markets. Naples carries the highest price point and can offer buyers meaningful negotiating opportunity. Sarasota has negotiating happening too, although single family inventory has tightened. And Tampa Bay generally sits somewhere in the middle on the purchase price with a tighter market overall. But if you remember one thing from this entire video, make it this: the lowest priced house is not automatically the most affordable house to own. Purchase price gets you through the door. Carrying cost determines whether that house actually works for you. And lifestyle determines whether you're going to be happy once you live there. Those are three completely different questions. If Tampa Bay is on your list, this is where I practice. Call or text me at 813-669-0857. Tell me what you're optimizing for: budget, lifestyle, water, new construction, walkability, more house, lower monthly costs, whatever it is, and I'll tell you whether Tampa Bay actually fits. And if the answer is Sarasota, Naples, or Fort Myers, I'll connect you with an agent who works that market every single day, and they're some of my greatest friends and business partners, because that is a better outcome for you than me pretending every Florida market is my market. And if you're already working with an agent, stay with them. Send them this video and ask them to run the full carrying cost math on the property you're considering. I'm Tamily Abdo, local real estate agent serving the Tampa Bay area, and every Thursday we drop a new video breakdown. So follow us along, hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.